Hey, welcome back to another Black Tea Coffee vlog. In this video, we have a question, and I also wanted to follow up with what are we going to do with this information from that last brew box about finishing temp and taking a sample roast and then going okay, what do I want to do with it, right? Let's follow up, let's talk about it. So on Instagram, Dev is back. How do we know what roast profile would be best for specific processed beans? I mean, I have an assumption of gathering density, moisture, processing method of the beans and roasting, all light, medium, and developing medium roast, and then ultimately cupping them. Still thought I'd ask you. Okay, yeah. Yeah, you're essentially, you're correct. In the end, so many people in the coffee industry who are actually professionals, who are, speaking from a lot of experience, just go hey, you can take your sample roast, which is generally an underdeveloped roast or a standard roast, right? And then from that, cupping that sample roast, right? Then we can go okay, let's make it sweeter because I feel like it could be sweeter, or let's give it more body, or let's give it more acidity because I feel like the acidity will really shine here, right? And that's it. You just go roast it, you try it, and then you go cup it, and you see which one tastes the best. I think the issue here that maybe I myself and maybe all of us, home roasters or beginning roasters are getting caught up on is what is good, better, best, right? Because why? We probably haven't cupped enough coffees to actually have the breadth of knowledge to go this is good, better, best yet, right? Maybe we're not there yet, or maybe you have a golden tongue and you can taste the difference or whatever, I don't know. But in general, if you haven't tasted it, if you haven't had enough practice or exposure or access, experience, skill, right? I think my issue is I don't have enough exposure and or skill, probably right, to really say with 100% confidence next to some other Q grader what is good, better, best. All right, so if we all kind of get that, understand that, and be yeah, we're all learning, okay, so now we just go to the next tier of that, which is I'm in the process of learning to understand what is good, better, best. And on top of that, it's not only what's good, better, best, but also what's bad too, right? I was talking about in the last videos, what are the defects? What specifically are the defects? If I'm roasting a sample roast and I'm purposefully underdeveloping it so I can identify anything that's wrong, any red flags with the green itself, with the processing itself, what does that taste like? Something that I talked about with Jared from Asea was over fermentation. What does that taste like? A processing that is used to mask terroir or quality of green coffee, right? So there's that too, the defect part, the masking of things, the bad stuff, the bad flavors of coffee. Okay, so I don't know where I was going with that, but basically, we're on the process, we're in the road to expanding our knowledge to understand what is good, better, best, so that we can answer questions like these. How do we know what roast profile would be best for a specific processed bean? And then this video disappeared, but basically Dev was showing me an anaerobic processed or some fancy fermentation processed coffee that he bought that was very expensive, and that he was trying to compare it to his own roast and going okay, if they're selling their coffee at a very expensive rate, I maybe want to jump on board with that. How do I go about roasting it? So for example, right, this is how I would kind of approach it at this point in time, right? Because my approach can change in the future. But basically, we get a sample of green. Maybe it's some anaerobic processed lactic something, whatever kind of green, right? And we're looking for that fermentation note, and we want to get what we paid for, right? And we're hearing a lot of good things about it. Maybe from where you bought this green, they're going to give you some tasting notes. Okay, so you're like, okay, I'm going to sample this green from you. I'm going to roast it on a sample roaster, or I'm going to roast a sample of it. It doesn't have to be specifically a sample roaster, but you need a sample of this coffee to see what's there. Okay, so typically what I would do, I'd take my little Ikawa, I would run a full batch, which is 100 grams, a sample roast, and I would do it at a light roast. I would pick light roast and high development or something like that. That's what I can choose on my Ikawa settings. Okay, if you have the Pro, you can get very technical with it. Even on my my version, my Ikawa roaster, I can I believe I can select the finishing temperature. So I will select something around 400. Let's just go with Jared's recommendation, which is like 404, 405 Fahrenheit in a finishing temperature. Okay, let's just start there. Just start there if you can, and then if you feel like it's underdeveloped or whatever, then change that to like maybe 410 or something. Okay, so let's start there at a standard. Okay, and then from this sample profile, we're going to, if it's anaerobic processed washed, I'll wait a day. If it's anaerobic processed natural, maybe I'll wait 2 days. I'll cup it properly. I'll maybe have something to cup along with it, like some kind of control there. So some other coffee that could kind of give me an anchor, or like I guess that's a good word of saying it. Like, give me an anchor. Like, if I'm gonna say it's like a Costa Rican anaerobic washed coffee, maybe I'll put another Latin American coffee with a similar process right next to it. So I could just compare, you know, if I'm just tasting one thing, it's kind of hard, especially when you're learning to judge it. And judging is always easier when we have something to compare it to, right? So have something to compare it to, or maybe roast it 2 different ways. Take the same coffee, if you have enough green, you know, roast 100 grams of that coffee like super light, and then maybe roast the other one just a little bit, you know, more developed or something like that. So I have 2 versions, okay? And then cup those, take copious good notes, and then just point blank ask yourself in the cupping process, which one is better? Is 1 better than 2, right? Is 2 better than 1? Whatever, all right? So from there, we'll go, okay, if we're confident enough to take this into a production roaster, and we've made some assumptions, like, for example, we'll talk about how their sample roast on Mill City Roasters, they're like, so this light and fast roast is intentionally undeveloped to reveal any issues, defects, negative qualities in the coffee. The sample roast shows us the potential of a new green and gets us thinking about all the ways we might like to profile it for production roasts. Okay, so when they're cupping it, they were saying refined acidity, nice complexity. That means it has depth to it, meaning it has layers of flavors, complexity, and fresh fruit sweetness. Okay. Now, what does that mean to like a beginner roaster? Not much yet. But if you've been in the game a little bit, like Dev, you've been roasting for a while now, I think. You've I think cupped a lot of coffees. And if anything, if you can't pull out, you know, these descriptors, I think you may be at the point where you can say one is better than the other, or one is more this, or one is less this, right? Maybe you can't pull out the words, the descriptors or anything. That's okay. Maybe you're not there yet. But like myself, like I don't always have at the tip of my tongue these really great descriptors. I'll be like, 1 is better than 3, or I like 3 and 4, or whatever, right? And just to help you kind of like penetrate exactly it is what you're tasting. That way you can just make decisions. Because I think the worst thing that we can do as roasters when we were first starting is get too muddled with too much information, you know, like you get decision fatigue or information overload. Okay, so if you can help yourself to simplify the decisions that need to be made at the cupping table, that way you can move on to the next process, which is production roasting, right? So production roasting, here we go. I mean, you know, the last video really illustrated it. It was like, okay, let's try low and slow. All right, let's try a long middle. Let's try a later dry end, you know, because my dry end, this is my roast right here. I always try to get them to be like 4 minutes 30, you know, and I try to get my middles to be like 3 minutes 30 to 4 minutes. I'm like 15 seconds over here, and then a short finish here. For this particular grain, that's what I always try to do. So here, you know, you can try a production roast of this, a low and slow. You can try a high heat and fast. You know, does it need more acidity? You know, let's see. Does it need more punch to it? You know, or do we want it to be a little slower and more sweetened out, or maybe the acidity needs to be more balanced, you know? Or is it just right something in the middle? They call it high charge, medium heat application, okay? So it's just that process, man. And I think you know the answer to that. But I wanted to take this time to like just reiterate what we just learned from the last video, which is like, okay, so we got this new coffee, we sampled it. It has some opportunities or untapped potential here based in the cup. You know, I feel like maybe we can bring out more of this acidity, or maybe we can bring out a little bit more sweetness, or there's something underdeveloped that I'm tasting in the cup, right? And so we go, okay, let's try it. I don't know yet. We're just gonna try it. So we try these 3 ways. We cup them all against each other, and we make a decision then, right? And if anything, you know, cupping by yourself is kind of hard. It's hard to further your cupping skills, your sensory skills. Try to get somebody in there with you who can cup with you, and just to provide another set of taste buds that you can kind of anchor your taste buds to, right? Like oftentimes I'll bring in my husband because it's just me, honestly, most of the time. And I think that vacuum of cupping is not good for me. I need to get out. I need to cup up with more people. And it doesn't matter if they're, you know, not coffee people or whatnot, but just to like, you know, maybe I'm just too hardcore leaning on liking natural coffee, right? And I've just become too biased, and I need somebody to just go, actually, yeah, this just tastes like ferment. And I'll be like, oh, you know, maybe this is not that special as I thought it was, right? And they like this wash process coffee or whatever. But get out there and, or not get out there, but maybe kind of bring somebody into your cupping table and see if they would like to taste with you, cup with you, okay? It doesn't have to be super crazy. I think as long as somebody's in there just like doing the thing of rinsing the spoon in between each cup, like I think that's good enough, at least for now, right? When you're trying to just figure out stuff and anchor your taste buds. So that's what I would do, Dev. And I think you're on the right track. I think you know you're on the right track. But good to hear from you. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope that was helpful. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Bye.